What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. Now, in one of the recent videos, I described a dream I had, and it was an important one. You know when some dreams are more important than others. And what we're getting into today is not a full and total analysis of all aspects of the dream. We're going to go through some bits I've been thinking about. And to start, we'll review the dream in case people aren't familiar with it. In the dream, I was living with a guy named Jake. Jake looked like Cameron Fry from Ferris Bueller, and he was very INFJ-ish in demeanor, voice, eyes, everything. He'd been, at some point, convicted of rape and done time for it, but also was open about it, spoke about it in this calming way, the way he spoke about everything, like it wasn't a big deal. He acknowledged the fact it was a big deal, but like it wasn't a big deal. His ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend didn't appear in the dream, but I knew they were now carrying guns around in response to him. He hadn't done anything, but his existence prompted carrying firearms. And I think Jake was armed too, but I don't remember. Anyway, Jake was growing a clone in a vat of me in his bedroom. He had a different name for it. I don't remember what the name was, but every day he would torture it, say things like it deserved to be punished, and that made me very uncomfortable. Both because of the fact of what he was doing and the fact I knew he wanted to kill me and he hated me. But he talked about it in such a calming way, I didn't do anything. Even though my instinct said I should pull my gun and shoot him right now, because if you don't, he will kill you soon. But I didn't because he spoke so calmly and rationally. And again, his talking about it didn't change my mind. I knew this was a big problem and he would kill me, but I didn't kill him because of how calm he was. Then there was a closet, a big walk-in closet, and I don't remember if I opened the door or if it was already open, but inside it was set up like a business. It was like a command center. Desks, computers, bulletin boards, all sorts of business stuff. And it was filled with women. And I knew they all looked different and were dressed different, but they were all shards of one woman in different bodies. And what they were doing was running all of Jake's online businesses from this single location. And this is something I didn't mention in the first description of the dream because I was gunning it. Their vibe was weird. I'm pretty sure they were all clones. And they were working for Jake, quotes voluntarily, but the energy of that room was really bad. As in that closet, something cosmically wrong is going on. Oh, and that's another thing. As this dream is progressing, the tension keeps ratcheting up. And when I spotted all these women, they all froze and stood perfectly still, but not totally perfectly. And Jake told me what I was looking at was not a closet, it was actually a painting. There wasn't a closet, there were no women, it was all a very lifelike painting. And once again, he calm talked me into agreeing with him. I knew inside what I was looking at, that this was a closet and these were women, and the tension was rising, but because of the way Jake told me that this was a painting, I agreed with him. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably because I was afraid of that tension breaking. I knew he was going to do something, and I didn't want it to happen. But then the dream hard cuts into I'm in a slime factory. The machine, it looks like a hopper, a giant hopper made out of, what is it, chain link fence. And there's a machine at the bottom, and blue slime is coming up and going out of it, and slime is overrunning the factory. And I and this other guy, he looked like the joke character from Dodgeball. If you've ever watched that movie, the dorky dude looked like him. He and I needed to escape the slime factory. And it was, again, hard cut into this. Completely irrelevant to the primary dream, but it must be important because I'm still thinking about it. And then I woke up, and the feeling went from increasing tension to creeped out, uncomfortable dread that kept getting worse. It was in the middle of the night. And the more I thought about Jake and that situation and his face and his eyes, it's the sort of fear like someone is trying to break into your home and kill you. Needed to look over my shoulder there. Weird, vivid dream. The moment I woke up, I knew I needed to write this one down, even if it kept me up, and it did. And when I first talked about this dream in that video, I mentioned this seems pretty obvious what's happening here. My unconscious is showing me an aspect of my shadow. And well, that's the thing about dreams, right? It's a lot like tarot readings. What you think is obvious probably is obvious, but you don't want to conclude completely on one thing because there's probably a lot of shit going on in these dreams. And I was shying away from it at first in that video. I was shying away from it at first because the most obvious stuff is super obvious, and it's all really bad. Now, I still contend Jake and I are not the exact same thing. I think Jake is an aspect of my shadow, or represents an aspect of my shadow, designed to be uncomfortable, to make me uncomfortable, so I'll think about the things I need to think about. Preferably not by shying away, which thankfully one commenter called me on it, called me on the shying away, and I had to pivot and act like I wasn't, because I wasn't totally shying away, but I was shying away. That is such an uncomfortable dream. But while we're talking about shadow stuff for a moment, we are familiar with the your shadow is its own sentience, the same way you are your own sentience, and you're both inhabiting one body model. Except you're the one at the wheel, and your shadow is a passenger who can't talk to you and has very different opinions from you and is very uncomfortable with the direction you are driving at all times. And at first, most of the time, until you start doing shadow work, your relationship will be very hostile, and because your shadow can't speak directly to you, and because it represents a lot of things you don't like, you hate it or it scares you, whatever, you're inclined to try to shut it up even more than it already is. And how would you feel if you were in your shadow's position and the person driving you around hates you? You're probably going to freak out and start acting out, which is how your shadow gets you. And you don't want to you need to think of your shadow as a person, one, so you can empathize, two, so you can develop a relationship with it. The world is bad and harsh enough. You don't need to be fighting yourself. And the reason I bring this up is the the dream has a title, Jake and the Clones. This dream made me think about my shadow. because it's very clear this is an aspect of the shadow. I don't think it's the shadow directly, because the feeling I get from this dream is it's trying to communicate something to me. And when your shadow does stuff like this, I think these moments are actually the best moments you can have with your shadow. The signs of the healthiest relationship. Because again, your shadow will never straight up speak to you. As you begin doing shadow work, you'll notice your shadow advising your conscious functions or chipping in, maybe even making stuff happen in the world here or there. Still will never communicate with you directly, but I think dreams like these are as close to direct communication with your shadow as you can get. You don't speak the same language, so it's drawing you pictures and showing them to you. And even when you're doing shadow work and trying to connect with your shadow will always know how to make you uncomfortable. And a thing to consider is you make your shadow as uncomfortable as it makes you. But you both need to overcome that fear and hatred of one another, even at the best of times, or especially at the best of times. So, when you have very direct communication like this, you don't run from it, which is the instinct. And I knew that, and I was still shying away from it, because the implications are dreadful. And also, of course, because if you're sharing your dreams like these with people, people listening, viewers like you, will draw their own conclusions from implications they make and assume those are the conclusions and that's what you are. When in reality, it's never that simple. No, you know why? I'll tell you right now why that makes me uncomfortable. It's because when you feel or recognize you don't understand something important that has to do with your soul, you don't have total control, you never have total control over yourself, despite what you'd like to think. You don't have control over self-perception or others' perception. And that affects your reputation, and reputation is everything. So that adds to the fear. But in situations like these, I think the more afraid you are, the more important this probably is. The convicted rapist bit really skeeves me out and makes me uncomfortable. I have ideas of what that part of the dream means, but even if my ideas of what that means are correct, I don't know what to do about it. Because the instinct is to say, if you feel there's something wrong, especially on that sort of front, change, but instinct is telling me it's not that simple. I think that is a sign that I'm looking at something the wrong way. Because the thing about Jake is he had shit locked down. That was something I responded to that one commenter with. Something I'd thought about. You need a Jake, or you need that Jake side as an enforcer and or an advisor, because Jake knows how to work the material world and get results and keep everything safe. The issue is, at least in my thoughts about it, I've been thinking about this a lot, is Jake is devoid of mystical attainment. Or if not attainment, then hope. Jake feels like the end game of materialism. Like the king who conquers the planet but can never ascend. Or rather, doesn't, because the king either rejects or doesn't even know there is an ascending. Or in Halo, the Forerunners versus the Precursors. The Forerunners have total mastery over the material world, but they totally miss or reject the spiritual world, and that's what undoes them. Jake is a master of the material world with no spark whatsoever. You need Jake because unfortunately you do exist in the material world, but you don't want Jake on the throne because if he were on the throne, there would be, well, one, there would be nothing really worth living for, and two, you'd be missing the most important part of existence, which to me is the mystery, the things we don't know. And I think the torturing this other clone thing is a commentary on that conflict. Jake hates this immaterial part of you because it is the reason you suffer in the material world. And results speak for themselves, and Jake gets results. Now, this other side, in that comment, I called it the director because it is the one with final say at the moment. It doesn't have any results that could even try to speak for themselves. The director has greater possibility alone. That's all it has. A spark of the higher and the greater and the transcendent, and not a single thing to show for it. So I think there's a growing conflict there. In a very extreme way, extreme sides, do you want everything and have it mean nothing in the end? Or do you want nothing but possibly have it mean something? And neither of those extremes is very useful. And I'm not a balance guy, because it's not like, you don't want to try to meet halfway and compromise. Compromise is the dumbest thing on the planet. What you want is cooperation. You want both of these things. And I think you can have both of these things. I think it is possible to become a master of the material and still have hope. But for some reason, there is a conflict between those two positions that I don't know how to resolve. Because I don't really know why they're fighting to begin with. And once again, I don't even know if they're fighting. I don't know if this is the conflict or one of the things the dream is trying to point me to. I misinterpret shit constantly. But we mentioned, we've been thinking about this, we'll continue to think about it. Something happened today, and the chord was struck. I saw what I'm pretty sure is one of the connections, real-world connections. And it came from interacting with people. We aren't going to use real details, so we'll use a fictionalized version to explain what I'm talking about and what happened. Now, in real life, I don't like giving people any information about me. I do not like people knowing almost anything about me. Even inconsequential shit. Because even if you allude to something for one moment accidentally, so small you think there is no way anyone can or would bother to remember it, especially when it's not connected to anything, I guarantee you somebody will notice it and remember it and start trying to figure you out. Because once they have enough of an idea of who or what you truly are, now they have something to hate for existing, and they have something with legs they can kick out from underneath it. You don't want people knowing you in any way. And we mentioned Effie bullshitting in a video a while ago. Something I caught myself doing, if you want to get anything done at a higher level, people do need to feel like they know you. But letting people know who you actually are, or even a falsified persona that you've handcrafted, those are losing games. So how do you make people feel they know you without their knowing anything about you? You get them to talk about things. People love talking about themselves and expressing their opinions, especially ones they like to repress or feel they need to hide, with someone they feel will not judge them. So you get them on a roll, you get them talking about themselves, they're gonna start masturbating, that's what people do, and then they'll start probing you by alluding to their opinions on sensitive matters. And when they do that, what you do to get closer to them, to make them feel they know you and the you they know is good, because it's the you they think they're getting to know is an incomplete reflection of them, you agree with the parts of what they say that you actually agree with. And this is where having, I don't know what the word would be, asymmetrical beliefs is useful. Because you can agree with a lot of shit that people assume if you agree with one part of it, then you must agree with this entire thing that they agree with, that they are, or this doctrine they are embedded in. And for you, that's not necessarily the case. But they don't know that. They don't need to know that. But the stuff you say you agree with, you need actually to agree with. People can smell honesty. Some people can, anyway. And then you get that ball rolling, it escalates, they give their opinions on more sensitive matters, you again agree with the parts you do agree with, and eventually they feel like they know you. And they don't. What they actually know is a shattered and rearranged mirror of themselves, fabricated from parts of their beliefs you do agree with, but probably not in the way they would agree with or believe in. But it doesn't matter, because as long as you can maintain this shattered mirror, and if you do believe in the parts of it you do believe in, you can, everything will be fine. I am a hardline fascist with one person, I am a hardline communist with another person. That kind of shit. Now, to our fantasy example, imagine a vampire hunter returns to his hideout to check on his vampire hunter buddy, and when he goes inside, he sees his buddy standing over a body, the room absolutely covered in blood. His buddy has fangs, blood is dripping from his fangs, and he's wearing a fuck garlic t-shirt and all other things like that. And then, despite being startled, the vampire hunter's buddy starts talking to the vampire hunter about hunting vampires and about how shitty vampires are, and the vampire hunter goes with it. Uneasy at first, and then relaxing, then totally calm, like nothing is wrong. Takes about an hour. Now, the vampire hunter knows exactly what he saw, but the comfortable conversation was so good, it was like pre-nut interference. you decide to overlook the painfully obvious because the obvious would stand between you and getting what you want. Even if what you want isn't anything you want, we mentioned last time, life is all about feeling certain ways about life. As long as you don't need to acknowledge the facts of the matter, or even just that something is amiss, you'll do that because it's more comfortable, more pleasing. And actually, it reminds, I'm pretty sure, I never read the books, thankfully, but the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie. I feel pretty sure there's a killer in that movie who the man in that movie knows by that point is the killer, but the killer talks him into going inside so he can be trapped and killed. On one hand, using the man's politeness, like that social pressure to do or to follow social conventions, that scene always stuck out to me. Got my young noggin jogging because that was too real. Feeling that social pressure to do things, even when you know for certain you shouldn't, that's too real. But also, in relation to this dream and to this event, the not wanting to allow that tension to break and need to face facts because the facts are probably going to be pretty ugly. That's what happened today. And it wasn't anything serious, it was a political thing. And in that fantasy example, if we're trying to make it super accurate, yes, actually, in fact, Vampire Hunter's buddy is not a vampire. He's actually a red cap, but that doesn't change the fact that he's not an anti-supernatural thing. And I could see in this person's eyes that initial unnervingness, that knowing what's being said is not the case, not what's happening, but it's, you can feel it, it's true enough, and engaging in that is more pleasant than engaging in this something amissness and risking that tension popping. And in that situation, I was Jake. Literally Jake. The way Jake spoke to me about things. You know something is wrong, but he's so calming, and you're so afraid of this tension boiling over, you'll go along with what he says because continuing to play in this falsehood is better than risking the consequences of facing this reality. Now, obviously, violence isn't on the table in this situation. The real tension popping, if it were pushed, would be social discomfort. Big social discomfort. Probably with consequences. Don't want to risk that, so we will stick with this pleasant, real enough reflection. And by the way, if you hate the idea of this and think you shouldn't do this, the alternative is being authentic and then you get fucked up by somebody who won't accept you. You do not let people know what you are. And don't try to fashion some false persona either. You need to pull some bricoleur shit and build a makeshift mirror. But the point of bringing this connection up is how unnerving it is. Knowing something is wrong, but not wanting to confront that, not wanting to pull on that thread, and then need to deal with what's there. Now, what does this connection mean, or what do we do with it? Well, first, on the materialistic level, you analyze what is happening here and how you can use it consciously, tactically, which we've done. And then, now that we've seen both sides of this, my instincts are telling me there is something about not confronting obvious facts because you're afraid of what will happen if you do. Or one of the rules of acquisition, the only thing more dangerous than a question is an answer. Now, I don't know what to do with this yet, right? Because that's another thing about dream analysis and tarot readings that makes you not want to discuss them with people because they will draw one conclusion and call it a day. When in reality, if you're just working with a dream or a tarot spread, even if you draw a conclusion, it usually won't mean anything at first. This is not. It's not like a puzzle on a piece of paper that you just solve. I'm assuming now that we're aware of this, the only thing more dangerous than a question is an answer thing, another event will happen. Meaning, now that we know how it feels on both sides to have this choosing not to confront the scary, obvious truth, we learned what it feels like to be on the other side through an event. Now I'm guessing another event will happen in which we are required to act on this knowledge we've been given. And maybe this is like an Odyssey situation. We will sail around and encounter aspects of the dream in real life as if the dream were a map leading us to some destination and going off course and all this other bullshit. That's actually a nice little segue here if we're talking about Calypso. Someone's been casting dirty magic on me. Maybe this is all in my head. Maybe this is psychosomatic. At first, I figured that's probably what it was, kind of funny. I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it felt like someone psychically kissed me and it was really uncomfortable. My lips got all fucky-wucky. Ugh. But last night, I was laying in bed and just lying there. And I almost came at no mast. Weird feeling. I'm trying to fall asleep and again, not doing anything with my hands. I can feel the cum pumps firing up. And I'm thinking that's odd. Because I'm already in kind of a weird falling asleep, but also magical shit going on mental state. You know, there's a difference between being normal tired and being supernatural tired. I was supernatural tired. And I don't know how to describe this, but do you know, or are you familiar with this, the sensation when you're about to orgasm in which your dick feels like a ship? And I mean this in an abstract sense. As in, your dick is an organic thing, but then there is this abstract structure with a bow and whatever those beams are that ships have. There is some abstract structure and passage you can feel sensationally, but your dick isn't like that at all physically. And then you orgasm. And that's what I felt at no mast. I felt the abstract ship sensation and my body trying to fucking blow a load at no chub. That has never happened to me before, at least as far as I can remember, and it was shocking, and I sat up straight, awake. And if someone is casting fucked up magic on me, can you instead please cast one of two things, preferably both. General good fortune. Let's let's get a good season going here. I want to feel good and have everything work for a while. And then two, a general feeling of security spell or magic. I understand we can't make the world great and secure and non-threatening, but if I can just feel that way for a while, I would appreciate that. I was thinking about this too. This came to mind last night after this because I was shocked and it was funny and I was also agitated. It's this sickening desire to be babied by an entity that is capable of making everything okay. And I've put in a lot of work not to even entertain that thought most of the time, most of all with people. Both because you can't afford to think that way, well, primarily because you can't afford to think that way, but also because it's like a disease. If you don't treat it immediately, it'll get bad. It's a way to be exploited. Yet, God, how nice would it be or feel to relax for a while and be pampered and not need to worry? Not even need to entertain the idea of a Jake existing. Now, there's so much more in this dream to talk about, but right now, I wouldn't be able to do anything with it because I don't know anything. The women in the closet clones all shards of one woman running Jake's online businesses, choosing to be there, but something unnerving about the entire situation. That's something I want to talk about badly, but I don't know what to do with it yet. Because the obvious conclusion to draw, and the easily moralizable conclusion as well, ENTJ women working for me, and that's bad. Probably has something to do with dehumanization or objectification. The I the dread, you don't understand the dread I feel not knowing exactly what the rape aspect of Jake is and thinking, please, please, God, don't let it be attached to that part of the dream. Again, I feel confident none of this is one-to-one literal. But if it makes me that uncomfortable, then whatever it actually is going to make me uncomfortable to that degree once I learn it. Because I think there is some conflict in me regarding love and partnership. How do you view women, particularly competent ENTJ women, as individuals the way you need to make life worth living, while also adequately, efficiently, appropriately treating them like resources and exploiting them? Because we're all objects, we're all resources, but some resources are more resourcey than other resources are. This is some Christmas Carol shit. I can already feel that's where the painful punch is gonna come. And oh, but it hasn't hit yet. And the Joe dipshits among you will automatically be thinking, it's gonna be painful because the way you look at women is shitty. And it's gonna hurt because you'll need to change and be a better person. Okay, but what if that's not what the epiphany is? Because we're having this this goes back to the beginning. We're having this internal conflict in the first place because there is an essential component to both sides. And I'm of the mind there isn't some balance to achieve. It's a matter of finding the appropriate form of cooperation based or made possible by a truth as yet uncovered. What if the answer to the women question is ugly and painful? Because that's another thing, thinking about all this. You want the optimistic, happy outcome. And you're already aware this theoretical, overall, totally negative materialistic outcome is not an outcome because you need that intangible spark in there. But what if the form or the mixture this takes is foul, at least to your palate? Would have been better off with the, quotes, totally negative materialistic outcome. It's like Janice from The Sopranos, actually. She is so detestable because you can tell there is a human being somewhere underneath all of Janice. It's so much worse that she has a prune of a soul somewhere in there. She would be less detestable if she did worse things but had no soul. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Do you know what I am saying to you? I don't know, this shit's a doozy. I don't know how we got to 40 minutes. Usually when I make videos that last 40 minutes, either they feel totally rambling or I'm being super indulgent. In this video, it doesn't feel that way. I am dreading seeing what Jake and the clones has to tell us in the future. I'm also excited about it now that we've confronted the horror of it all. What does our shadow have to say to us? What will it show us? My shadow is the baddest bitch in the land, a true entertainer. I am very interested to see what she has in store for us. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.